Hello and welcome to This is USG, a video podcast by the universities at Shady Grove. 9 universities, 1 campus, great results. I'm Khademian, Executive Director of the universities at Shady Grove. One of the things that USG prides itself on is that of building strong partnerships and alliances within the greater community of Montgomery County and throughout the metropolitan region. That especially includes the business community, including those represented by our local chambers of commerce. Today, I am joined by the leaders of 2 of those chambers. Marilyn Balcombe is the longtime president and CEO of the Gaithersburg-Germantown Chamber. Marilyn, welcome.
Thank you.
Marji Graf is president and CEO of the Rockville Chamber of Commerce. Marji, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's great to have you both here. Really appreciate it. I'm just going to ask you each to give a little bit of an introduction of yourselves. Marilyn, maybe you can go first. What brought you to the chamber? What was your professional path that brought you to the chamber?
Sure. So I like to say that professionally, I have a little bit of a checkered past. So I started out as an accountant, and then my doctorate is in organizational psychology. I worked for the Department of Energy. But then I started doing community-based work and through nonprofits and with the county, and I really felt a passion for working in my community. So when the position of at the chamber came up, I thought that would be a great fit with my business background and my love for community. I've been there for 16 years and love it. It's been great.
Fantastic. That's great. Marji, what about you?
Well, I came from New England. I moved to Maryland 3 years ago. Previously, I owned 2 of my own businesses that I lost in the economic downturn of 2008. So when this happened with COVID, I took it personally. It took me right back to that pain I felt. So my company was always a member of a chamber of commerce. So I went to them and I said, I'm going to have to get a job because, no one's buying the things I was selling at that time. And they're like, well, why don't you apply for the Chamber of Commerce, the next town? And I'm like, I don't have any chamber experience. But they said, but you have business experience. So that's the big plus. And I applied and I got it. And I stayed there for 10 years before coming here. And I've been here now for 3 years.
That's great. That's terrific. It's very helpful, I think, to understand the trajectories of people in positions like yourselves and what you bring to the role as well. Marilyn, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what is the role of the chamber in Gaithersburg and Germantown. What do you, what are the ways that you help businesses? What is the incentive for a business to join the chamber? So just tell us a little bit about how that works.
So the chambers of commerce are member organizations. 100% of our revenue comes from our members. So it's an easy mission. Our mission basically is to help our members succeed. And we do that in a way that we provide opportunities for them to network with one another. We also work with our legislators, state and local governments to look at business-friendly climates. We are very much involved in land use planning, zoning. Transportation is huge. But also it expands out a little bit from that, from the perspective of in order to attract talent, we need good schools, we need safe communities, we need transportation infrastructure. So we consider ourselves to be a significant part of the community as a whole. Our number one job is our local economy and making sure that our businesses succeed. So that's a very important role we play in our community.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Marji, you probably have a very similar answer, but I'm curious to see how you define the role of the Rockville Chamber as well.
Well, the same thing. It's networking. One of the things that are very important and was important to me when I was a member of the chamber was the mastermind groups. Because there, if you're an entrepreneur working by yourself or a small business, you need a broader range of people to run ideas by and get help from. It's also educating our members. We have a mentor program, so it's members educating other members. And I think we do a really good job in marketing our members. So it's just another vehicle for them. You know, they have their own websites, they do their own marketing. But a lot of people, it's really important to have backlinks, you know, on the chamber website. That's really important for them to get a broader reach. And just opportunities. I mean, Marilyn and I, all of the chambers worked our tails off this past year with the PPP and, you know, where to get the loans, where to get the grants, you know, just access to information. And, you know, that's what we spent most of the year doing last year. You know, so it's also, you know, communicating the right message.
Yeah. So we'll come back to COVID, because I know that was has just, you know, that's just been such a huge lift to respond to and to support everyone as well. But Marilyn or Marji, let's stay with you and let's talk a little about from the chamber's perspective, what are some of the things in Rockville that you're lifting up and highlighting for the business community, or why new businesses would want to come? And what are some of the things that you think are special and unique about the Rockville community that that really appeals to business?
Well, I think Marilyn and I can agree on where we sit as far as being a life science hub. I mean, you know, the Montgomery County Economic Development just put out a press release, and they're saying that we are the immunology capital next to the nation's capital. You know, we have already 480 life science companies. So people come here because of people that are already here. You know, they're already here, so it's easy to attract. But one of the things is I work very closely with our economic development ready. So, you know, I kind of stay in my lane and they stay in their lane, but we work together. And also with the city. A matter of fact, we do walkabouts in different areas where I bring economic development, I bring ready, I bring a couple chamber members, and we go and we visit these businesses, and so they know that we're a resource for them. So whatever, you know, issues they might have, it's like, if I don't know, look at these people that I'm bringing to you. You know, we can help you. A lot of times I find that they let us know too late. And I understand that too, because when I was suffering in 2008, I didn't want to tell anybody I wasn't doing good. I wasn't going to tell anybody my things weren't selling, right? So I understand that, but it's like, if they don't let us know, we can't help. And, you know, we have all these resources, you know, so we work with everybody. It's a big, you know, big happy family, I like to call it. And, you know, the chambers do too. We reach out to one another, and, you know, people have been through it. So you're not alone going through it. Other people have gone through it. So why reinvent the wheel? And we're all, you know, I think communication is the main goal here. We all have to communicate. I mean, the universities have to communicate with the chambers and the business community to see what the needs are, you know, and the members need to communicate with us and let us know what their needs are.
So some great partnerships, great infrastructure, great communication. That's a real supportive network for business. That's fantastic. Marilyn, what stands out for you in Gaithersburg and Germantown?
Similar. I mean, the I-270 corridor is the tech corridor, and we're very happy USG is such an important part of that. So not only do we attract businesses because businesses want to be with other tech firms and biotech firms, but also the talent pool, right? So that's the beauty of an area like this, is that not only do we have the businesses, but we have the talent. Of course, most of the biotech companies will say there's a labor shortage, which there is, so I think that's what makes us stand out in terms of why would somebody want to come to the I-270 corridor, including USG, Rockville, Gaithersburg-Germantown. And then also from a perspective of the diversity, Gaithersburg and Germantown are always on the list of the top 10 most diverse communities in the country. Gaithersburg's 1, 2, 3 on any list that you look at. So, and I think that particularly now businesses are looking at creating that diversity within their ranks, and also how they can fit into a much more diverse community. So I think that really is one of our selling points. From a commercial perspective, we're a little bit further out, so our commercial real estate might be a little bit more appealing to people. So I think that's a plug. We're in an interesting situation that I cover both Gaithersburg and Germantown. One is a municipality, one isn't. And there's a stark difference when it comes to economic development. So while we do have the county economic development, it really helps to have the city out there really beating the bushes, trying to get people to come to Gaithersburg. So, and we work very closely with city economic development staff. I do want to touch on one of the things that Marji said, that sometimes people come to us too late. But they also sometimes come to us too early. The idea isn't quite fully formed, and we get calls all the time. Hey, I want to start a business, and we point them in the right direction. We give them a whole list of resources. We help them connect, and then say, and then when you're ready, come back and join the chamber.
That's great. That's great. What a great introduction to the work that you both lead. That's fantastic. I think it'll help the audience a lot to understand the work of both chambers. Marilyn, you focused on diversity, and I think this is absolutely one of Montgomery County's biggest strengths, is the diversity of our county. And it's one of USG's greatest strengths as well. Our student body, our staff, our team is very diverse, brings a lot of different experience and perspectives to the work and to the workforce as well. As you think about the talent needs that are there and what you hear from business, we know there's a lot of need in the life sciences. The Life Sciences Advisory Board at the state level has really highlighted where those talent needs are, and at USG, we're really laser focused on trying to really grow our life sciences here. But what other kinds of talent demands are you hearing, and do you see from your business owners and from the business community? Are there areas outside the life sciences? Are there particular areas in the life science? What are you hearing?
Well, of course, the life sciences has that issue. I think I just read the partnership that you have with MCPS, Montgomery College, USG is fabulous. I think that's great. I think the boot camps that are trying to get people into positions very quickly is great and will help. Outside of life sciences, hospitality is a major issue. We simply don't have enough workers coming in. I was in Kentlands just the other day and walked by a restaurant, and they have a big sign with signing bonuses for a restaurant. And so we're in a really interesting place right now. I listened to NPR this morning. They talked about the great resignation of people who are going to be leaving the field, retiring or looking for other types of work. But then one of the speakers said, we're really looking at a great reset of what employment means and who has the power in an employment situation. For so long, of course, employers had the power, and right now there is a shift to that. And the businesses that will succeed are the ones that will adapt and change to this new environment. But I think that we're going to be in for a little bit of a bumpy road when it comes to talent attraction and retention, and not quite sure where it's going to end up. But just like we've all had to pivot in the past 15 months, we're not done pivoting. So I think we have to see what's coming down the pike.
I think you're absolutely right, and the focus on talent makes the talent focus complicated, but it also reemphasizes, I think, the importance of just career readiness and broad career talent and experience. The general set of teamwork and leadership and communication and critical thinking skills, and how important these are, regardless. Not necessarily targeted to a specific area. Marji, what kind of intel, kind of data do you have in thinking about where you see talent needs or shifting talent or things that we can't yet predict? What are you hearing in this area?
Well, I agree with Marilyn wholeheartedly. I think everybody's going to have to be flexible, the talent as well as the employer.
Mhm.
It's a new day. What was in the past is not going to be in the future. And everybody's got to be open-minded and everybody's got to be flexible and meet in the middle, because we can't go from this way to then we went to nothing. We're going to have to meet in the middle. And, some employers are going back, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and then they can, work from home the other 2 or 3 days, whatever's more comfortable. I know myself, I was a lot more productive working from home, being on the Zoom meetings back to back without all the driving and without being in the office and being, interrupted all the time. I got a lot more done. As a matter of fact, it was like I had to make myself take a lunch, because you're working all the time and you don't know it. So that's the downfall of it. But at the same time, you want to see the people and interact with the people. But I think we just have to be flexible and meet people to where they are. I'm not sure how to answer that question because I don't know if we know all the needs yet.
Mm-hmm.
We have a mixer coming up on Thursday. Some will be comfortable coming out, some won't be comfortable coming out. So I'm, doing the hybrid thing where it will be on Zoom as well as in person. And I think the chambers have to be flexible. Schools have to be flexible. Employers have to be flexible. I mean, there's no roadmap here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought it was hard going into COVID. I find it's harder coming out of COVID. I don't know, Marilyn, if you feel the same way, but it's like all new territory again.
Yeah, I do. I feel like once we started getting back to normal, there was an expectation that everything would go back to the way it was. And it's just simply not. And so I think that we're going to, and from the economic perspective, we have businesses that were holding on just by a thread, and businesses, it's hard for them to succeed that way. And businesses that used up all the reserves, they're one crisis away from closing. And so the economic impact of COVID isn't over yet.
Yeah, well, why don't we shift to COVID head on here? We're dancing around the edges of COVID, so let's talk about it. I think the impact will be long term. You've already hinted, Marilyn, to a really important part of it, which is changes in the workforce, changes in talent demands, changes in where people work, how they work. All of those things are coming out of COVID. Marji, maybe we'll start with you. Could you tell us a little bit about, what were some of the biggest struggles that employers and businesses were facing during COVID? And what do you see as some of the biggest challenges coming out of COVID?
Well, there's so many examples. I don't know where to start. Oh my God. The first thing was, the county closing down certain businesses. Mm-hmm. And then others in their category weren't closed. So there was like, how come they're how come I have to close and they're open? So there was a lot of us working with the county saying, please go visit these businesses because you're making decisions without understanding who they are and what they do. So, I mean, there was a lot of that too, the fairness thing. Yeah. And a lot of companies shifted. I mean, they pivoted, they did a great job because anybody in hospitality, anybody in retail, they had to look for other things to do. Some great success stories came out of it where the people started their own businesses. Like why work for this person? Mm-hmm. Let's create our own. So there was a lot of entrepreneurs that came out of this. I don't believe everybody's home just collecting a paycheck. I believe there's a lot of shift to opening their own businesses and thinking, how they can contribute and make a difference. But there were a lot of companies that realized, I not only can do this, what I've always done, but they could add services and take out like a middleman that was there before. I'm talking about like credit card processing, where before they would have to work with someone on a website and deal with that company's credit card processor. Now they can do it themselves. So they got rid of that middleman. So they took the time, they learned new skills, and they upped their product offering. So I mean, those were good stories that came out. But it was access to capital was the biggest one. How to get the loans, how to get the grants. We did almost every week. We did an SBA webinar, just to educate everybody and to stay on top of the tax ramifications too. But that was what the chamber had to do. We had to pivot all of our resources to online. None of us did Zoom before. So we all had to do what everybody else had to do. We all had to pivot and make our way through the new world.
Yeah, Marji, I really like your emphasis on entrepreneurship and the kind of innovation that came out of necessity as well. It's a really important takeaway. Marilyn, with the same question, what stands out for you as the biggest challenges for businesses in the chamber during COVID, and what do you see as some of the interesting things coming out of COVID, or some of the changes coming out of COVID?
Yeah, I think access to capital is the biggest, right? Well, the biggest challenge was the uncertainty. And how long is this going to last? What's the next thing that's going to happen? I mean, everyone dealt with a lot of uncertainty. And from a business perspective, if they could last for 3 months, but they couldn't last for 5 months, and those kinds of decisions that they had to make. And a lot of businesses, so some businesses just closed right away and just said, we're laying everybody off, we're going to shut the doors, we'll come back when this is over. Some tried to make it 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and then kind of blew through their reserves. And so I think uncertainty was the biggest challenge. And then getting the money to them. We worked closely with our federal delegation to let them know what businesses needed, and then also the state and the county. But the federal money was the biggest money. I mean, the SBA, the PPP, and the EIDL loans that made the difference between businesses that succeeded and businesses that didn't. And we, like Marji, a lot of hand holding, a lot of getting the information out. But then there's also, there are massive pivots, right? People who never had tables outdoors, and now then all of a sudden all their tables were outdoors, and now the municipalities are trying to make it easier now for that to be a permanent thing. So those are good things that came up. I think the issue of working smarter, working harder, I think is a good thing. And I also think the concept, and I don't know if this is going to last, but the idea of, we have this concept of Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Or an hourly view of an employee's worth is based on the number of hours they spend. And I think that this has been a great social experiment of really what is the value an employee brings. And it's not the number of hours that they sit at the computer. So I think we'll see very interesting shifts in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that, your last point, Marilyn, that the worth that someone brings, the value people bring.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times we're limited by the metrics that we keep, like with the metrics that we always reference, they put us in a box sometimes. Yeah. And I do think that, the kind of 9 to 5 productivity within 9 to 5, the hourly work output and things, that really has limited us in a lot of ways. And COVID, you're absolutely right. COVID has changed that. One of the big challenges we have here at USG with our staff is that people were working so much during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
People were putting in 12-hour days during the pandemic, and because the need was so high, but also people were just highly motivated and very productive, and so you don't want people working 12-hour days. You want people to have the time they need. But there definitely is a shift, I think, in terms of how we understand productivity and the motivation of people, and what people want to accomplish and the value that they're bringing to the job. I think that's a really important takeaway, that we need to think this a little bit in terms of how we think about value and contribution. Let me share with both of you a little bit about what we're doing at USG, and I'd love to get your insights, your advice for us. We are in the midst of our strategic planning process, and it's our first strategic plan ever at Shady Grove, and we're calling it USG 2.0. So we've had 20 beautiful years under the leadership of Stu Edelstein, and 12,000 students have graduated from here, and so USG has been an amazing startup institution in higher education, has done a phenomenal job. But now we're kind of reaching that point where we need to pivot and think about our future and where we go and how we mature. And, we're really trying to think about the role we play with business in the county and the role we play with higher education. And I think one of the most important roles USG can play is to be that space where we translate between what higher education, what programs they have, the expertise, the kinds of things that are in the pipeline that they can bring, and what business needs and the urgency that business has, and trying to find a way to wed those things together. I wonder if you both could, just reflect a little bit and share, what do you see as some of the things that we might be focused on in our strategic planning process, so we can do that better, so we can be more of a facilitator, collaborator, in bringing education to Montgomery County, talent development, that turns into economic development. Marilyn, let's start with you. Do you have any thoughts for us, or just reflections on what USG could be in order to help out the community?
Yeah, I think that there needs to be a quicker pipeline between the educational setting and the job. That can happen through internships. It can happen through job, work study, those types of things. But I think that the concept of asking the employer first, starting with the employer, to say, what skill set do you need? How many of job A are you hiring? How many of job B are you hiring? And create the curriculum based on the ultimate employment. I really value a liberal arts education. I think it's important, and I don't want to just create widgets, right? So I think that that's important. However, I think that the nexus between the business and academia has to be shortened, and it has to be more direct. The problem with that is, if you were to ask an employer, the question hasn't been asked yet to employers, right? For instance, jobs like accountants and attorneys and physical therapists, that we understand that pipeline. But a project manager, what skill set does a project manager need to have, and how do you create that? And so I think that having a more formal relationship between employers and curriculum would serve us all well.
What a great insight. I think that's terrific. Marji, what do you think?
Well, I agree with Marilyn. And I believe that everyone has to have a seat at the table. You need to be at the table. Economic development needs to be at the table. The chamber needs to be at the table. The business community needs to be at the table, and even the city needs to be at the table. We all need to be at the table, whether we do different round tables, with different groups, with different chambers, or the chambers always get together and do things jointly. So maybe, all the chambers are there, as well as, different businesses by sector, and maybe do something like that. But I think everybody's got to be at the table at the same time. So there's not, all this going over, and communication and flexibility. Like I said, I read somewhere that people are like, don't hire for the resume or the skill set, hire for who the person is, because you can always teach the skill set. And I thought that was interesting because you want to hire for your corporate philosophy, and everything else is teachable. So, I'm just hearing more of that too. And what I love is the mentor-mentee program.
Mm-hmm.
If you get some of these businesses to take some of these students, because people learn obviously different ways. Some people are more hands-on and get into a field and like, oh, maybe I don't really want that. And, so give them different opportunities to see really what's out there too. But I think everybody's got to have a seat at the table at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Marji. I think where true innovation and creativity happens is at the margins of all of our efforts, where our margins, run into each other. And when we can create those spaces when we're all at the same table, it may be only a small percentage of all of our time, but what can happen in that small percentage when we're all overlapping, when we're all at the table, can really be insightful and can really distinguish Montgomery County, I think, in big ways. So, well, I want to thank you both so much for your time tonight. This has been a wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot, and I'm really excited to continue working with both of you through USG. So thank you both so much.
Thanks. It's been great. We could go on all night, right?
Thank you, Anne. And if there's anything, we can do to help you, just let us know.
I will take you up on that. Absolutely. So thank you both so much. Have a great evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.